This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and William Hill. I'm delighted today to be joined with the former WBO Cruiserweight World Champion. We're here for a WBO World Cruiserweight World title. Bournemouth. Lawrence Okolie defends his title against Chris Billam-Smith. For a cruiserweight like yourself, this must be an incredible fight.
I love this fight, absolutely love it. Lawrence Okolie is willing to go to the Lion's Den and fight Chris Billam-Smith. And Chris, you know, these guys are familiar with each other, but you must really fancy it because this is his call. He could have actually gone down and said, you know what, he could have gone down the line and thought, I want to try and fight one of the other champions. Lawrence Okolie, you know, they say be careful what you wish for. He said, oh, I'll do it, let's do it. So I think it's a great fight, I really do. These guys, they know each other. But Lawrence is not going to give him his world title because it's his mate, and Chris is not going to take it easy because he's got a crack at his mate's title. He wants the title, so it doesn't have to be bad blood. But what I'm saying is this fight will be a good fight, and it'll be a good fight because Shane has trained both fighters at some point. So now Shane knows Lawrence's strengths and his weaknesses. Chris has improved over the past year or so when Lawrence has not been with Shane. So therefore, you know, it's the art of surprise what will come about. I think it's a good fight. I think this fight will be a grueling fight. I think Chris's style is a perfect style to force the good out of Lawrence because he's not going to stand off. He knows he can't stand off. He's got to put it on him. And he's strong on the inside. So to me, it's a great fight.
Do you feel like there's some added spice with obviously Okolie sort of leaving Shane McGuigan? I mean, it's billed as who dares gyms, you know? So is added spice?
Not at all, because I saw those boys waving to each other early on, so there's no bad feeling. But isn't it funny how things could possibly turn out? Chris Billam-Smith, he lost to Richard Riakporhe. Richard Riakporhe was waiting to try and get a crack at another title. He shouted out Lawrence. Lawrence is fighting Chris. What if Chris won? So then Chris is like top of the tree when he actually thought he was a runt of the litter. So he's like, yeah, I'm here now. You know, you beat me. I've just beat you. I'm king of the hill. So the landscape could change massively, and Chris could be in the driving seat.
How much do you feel like Okolie has to prove after the David Light fight with, you know, a lot of people criticising him after that fight, you know, a lot of people had to say, do you feel like this is a perfect fight for Okolie to really, really prove himself to, you know, Britain and the world?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think in that fight, Lawrence showed a lot of his vulnerabilities were still there. And I said, you know, he's nowhere near the finished article. To be world champion at this point, it shows he can only get better. But he's got to make sure, you know, he's busy, and this is it. He's going to make himself busy. So I think this should pull him on. I think Lawrence has got the punch power. His style is an acquired taste until you understand, and he believes in what he's got. There are some good fights out there for well, this is one of them. You know, Richard Riakporhe's there as well. So again, I think it's a good mix, really good mix.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, some more news that came out today that could potentially, you know, you don't want it to, but it could potentially overshadow this great fight that's been announced today. And I know you're going to get a lot of questions about it. Is obviously it was revealed in a post-fight drug test that Amir Khan tested positive for Ostarine. I feel like with a lot of fans, the most frustration is, and I'm sure you share this frustration, is this fight was, you know, almost 15 months ago, and the big frustration is why is this just coming out now, if you know what I'm saying?
Listen, I read the news on social media just like you this morning, and I asked myself the same question. So again, one thing we must learn is not to speculate, we've you know, because people say they don't know, they did know. Let time tell its story, and then we'll see that way. So I'm like you, I'm thinking, why don't we just find this out now? So I don't know. I've absolutely no more information than you have. So let's just wait and see.
Do you see some frustration with stuff like UKAD and some, you know, anti-doping bodies where obviously we had all the stuff with Conor Benn, you know, about contamination, this and that, and then this is coming out again. Do you feel like there's going to be a lot of public frustration towards, you know, the anti-doping?
As an ex-fighter, I'm frustrated because this overshadows our sport. This kind of stuff, this kind of news, breaking news overshadows our sport. So therefore, something has to be done. Suggestions have to be had. You know, unfair decisions have to be made, such as, and I keep saying, the board could say, whoever's in your team at this time, you know, before going into the ring, if he gets a ban, you all get a ban. If he fails, you all fail. That way, a lot more people would be less inclined to turn a blind eye. And that to me is the only solution I can think of to try and cut this shit out.
Do you feel people are sort of quick? Do you think it's dangerous for people to jump to conclusions? Where Amir Khan's obviously had a statement and he felt, I think it was a week before the fight, he tested negative in a drugs test, and then it'd be bizarre to exactly.
News is changing hourly, so let's not make the mistake we've done with Conor Benn and speculate and say he knew this, he knew that, he did this. Let the news unfold and let time tell the truth. And so, again, I know as much as you do.
Well, let's move on to something a little bit more positive. We saw Anthony Joshua return this past weekend. Just what was your summary on his performance? A unanimous decision victory over Jermaine Franklin.
Glad he won. He deserved the win. He boxed. He got the job done. I think he made what could be an easier job a harder job. I think Franklin's a good fighter. I think Anthony Joshua, on pedigree, on form, is levels above Franklin, and maybe it was a nervous return for him, but his performance wasn't the question. It was the desire, the antics in the fight that made me question the drive, the motivation. But after the last Usyk fight, I did say, it's going to take him about a year to get his head around it and get that motivation as to why he's fighting. And a lot of people are struggling to understand what I'm saying. If you've been a world champion and you believe you're the best fighter in the world, so you think like a god, But if you're a fighter and you want to be successful as a fighter, your aim is to be world champion. But if you're fighting and you know you can't be the world champion, what's your aim? What's your bonfire? What's driving you? What are you trying to do? Is it about making money? I don't think AJ is that kind of guy. So this is what he needs to decide himself. If he decides that for himself, then we'll see his intent or how strong his desire is.
So you sort of basically answered my next question, where I was going to ask you, where do you feel like AJ is mentally at as a champion? What his motivation is? It's quite hard to tell.
I don't know, and I can't speak for him, but from where I'm stood, I don't think he does either. He's got to decide what he wants, and I don't know.
What do you think's next for him in a sensible move? Potentially a Dillian White rematch? Joe Joyce. What's next for him? You'd say?
I'd say Dillian White. That's a good fight, and that's a leveler to say, right, let's see where we are. You beat me before. Let's see where you are. Both fighters have had experiences. They've lost and won since that, so we'll see where they are. I think that's a really good fight.
Well, Johnny, pleasure talking to you, mate. I appreciate you taking the time out to speak to me. So it means a lot, mate. Thank you. Cheers, mate.